Grieg was a composer of the 19th century. This was a time of growing nationality in music and led to many composers and artists trying to find their own national voice. Grieg took stylistic inspiration from the very distinct, characteristic Nordic folk songs, and his inventive lyricism and original harmony brought him much success, not least in his piano concerta in A minor, the Peer Gynt and Holberg Suite, and the 66 lyric pieces for piano. He even wrote 140 songs for the girl with a beautiful voice and the gift of interpretation. This girl later became his wife Nina. What a simp, am I right? Edward Grieg was born in Bergen in 1843. At the age of 15, he went to study at a conservatory where he claimed he had learnt nothing at all. Grieg studied harmony and counterpoints with teachers such as Richter. His insistence on writing the chords he liked instead of the chords the figured bass required showed his disdain for formality and convention and his desire for creativity. Taking Schumann as an example, Grieg's pieces have been able to sustain relevance throughout the years, staying popular with both professionals and casual listeners of classical music, showing how much of a master minimalist he is. This can be seen in one of his pieces, which my expert here will tell you all about.
Okay, so as you've heard an introduction to Grieg, we're going to start with the musical analysis. Now, as usual with the musical analysis, we're going to start bang smack in the middle. No, of course, we're going to start right at the beginning. I'm going to play through each section and show you the important points. Let's begin. Okay, so that first section you heard is based around a chromatic descending figure, starting at C and going down to G. And the left hand plays a chord, C and E. Now, this outlines the chord of C major because it has the root and the third. And the left hand notes are mainly based around C major. We've got C, B, B flat, A flat, and G. Now, out of those notes, the only one which would hint at anything else is A. That would hint at an A minor chord. And that's important because in the right hand, he plays this. Okay, so there's an acciaccatura and it goes down a fourth. So these A's are important because it could hint at A minor. So there's a harmonic ambiguity to this section. Also, in the left hand, the last note of each triplet is tied to the next one. So it gives it this 6/8 feel, even though it's a 9/8, this sort of lilting type feel. So like... Whereas a waltz, like, you could call it a waltz-like figure, but a waltz really sounds like this. The second note's sharp because it's supposed to dance. The second note is longer and it doesn't feel like a waltz. After we hear that right hand passage, we hear it again with an extra note added in, this G sharp. So we hear an A, then a G sharp, then an E. Now, as most of you might know, this is from a famous piece by Grieg called the Piano Sonata in A minor, and this is the Grieg motif. Now I'm going to play the next section, which is going to bring us to the end of the page, and I'm going to talk about it after I finish playing. Okay, so as you heard, this section is based around a cycle of fifths progression, ultimately ending on G major. So the first chord we hear is a half diminished chord in G major. Then we hear a 5/7 chord in C and some extra chords in F. So the main three keys that you need to understand for this section are C minor, F minor, and G minor, and also G major. But just remember C, F, and G. This whole section is based around melodically a rising figure, which goes something like this. So as you can tell, we have a lower auxiliary note. So and then we have a chromatic. So we have a minor with a chromatic going up a semitone to D flat and then D, and this ends on A flat, and then he repeats the same thing down a tone, so starting on G and then ending on F sharp. And then the third section melodically starts on E, has a bit of a fancy thing going to C, and then we go to A and then G. So as I said before, this reinforces the keys that we're looking at. We then hear this Neapolitan sixth, like I said before. Then we hear the same D7. Then we hear 5/7 in A. Then we hear another D7, and then finally we hear G. At the end of this section, we hear perfect cadence going from D7 to G.
Nice,
but he puts a 5/7 C in A minor for a bit of colour just before the G major. So this next section is based around more melodic ideas, and the first of which is a bird call similar to Vivaldi. So let me just play it for you. I mean, you get the gist. This is bird call. So if you listen to Vivaldi's piece, The Goldfinch, you'll hear it in that, and it's sort of a nice way of simulating a bird chirping in the night, because this is a nocturne, don't forget, so this is going to be a piece made about the night and the trials and all the stuff going on. In terms of harmony for this section, like I said, the melody, okay, so the melody for this section is very simple. It's a descending fifth with a trill and then an ascending fifth. No. So it's just based around fifths, bare fifths, which is quite a simple thing to play. This chord also makes a B9, which is quite nice, melting into an E9, which is quite different because B9 is the flattest harmony so far heard in this piece. So now we're going to move on to the next section, which is the più mosso section around bars 21, which is going to be the most difficult for me to play. First of all, the melody. So it starts like this. So that was a brief overview of the melody. Now let's talk harmony. So as you can tell, this has a much faster harmonic rhythm and a much faster rhythm in general. It's all semiquavers. We've moved into 6/8, so a new time signature. So now it starts to feel a lot different. It starts to feel more in 2-time, like a march, rather than a waltz, and it's definitely a huge style change. Exactly the same thing can be said for the chords. There's a lot of D9s, E flat 9s, B flat 9s, all sorts of very complex and rich and dark harmonies compared to the rather static harmony heard in the first section. The main figure ascends from F sharp to A to B flat to C, where it stays. You can tell from when I just played these notes, it's very chromatic and very disjointed, and it sounds awful. But obviously it doesn't sound awful when you hear it in context. So the harmony is an E9 rising to an E11, rising to an A flat 7, and then finally landing on a G13. So very, very chromatic. But if you notice, the E and the A flat and the G are very, very similar to the Grieg motif. The Grieg motif was A, G sharp, and E. So we've got, you know, two of those notes in there, the A flat and the E. We've got a G instead, but you know, and the 13th, I'm not sure. The G13 could maybe be a C major 7 chord because it's got that E on the top. The climax of the melodic motif in bar 21 feels in 3-time against 6/8, which is again that 3/2 cross rhythm, which is quite prevalent in this piece. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next section, which is very similar to the first section with a few differences. The main difference comes at bar 43. So before we heard this. But now we hear this. This, if you can't already tell, this section has shifted to G7. So this is important because it will signal the return back to C7 by the end of the piece. Now again, this is a very delayed cadence. In fact, it's more delayed than at the start because it spans almost 2 pages. Instead of using the A flat Neapolitan 6, here we go up to D flat, which is again in second inversion with all this other stuff going on. So the harmony in this section is very much similar. So we're going C7, B7, B flat 7, A7, A flat 7, G7. So again, that descending chromatic figure is apparent. So the G7 chord at bar 56 prepares the ultimate resolution to C7, like I said. So here we're finally getting somewhere. Also, you thought there's a final bird call that starts on A and E, and then finally we hear this. We can finally say with absolute certainty that this piece is in C major. It starts in C major and it ends in C major. So I hope you enjoyed this like introduction and analysis of Grieg's Notturno. Like and subscribe.
Thank you for listening and watching this presentation, presented mostly by Shane, but I did a little bit. Hey? Yes. And I hope you gained from my attempts to entertain at the start and during the editing process, and Shane's wonderful explanations, a greater understanding of this piece, such as the ambiguous harmony and the ascending melody lines, and like the pure muscle section in 6/8 instead of 9/8, and the bird call reminiscent of The Goldfinch by Vivaldi. And there's an extended perfect cadence to finish the piece. Alright, no need to keep talking, bro. So, in conclusion, I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you had a great time. I'd like to remind you, we spent our entire week in this video, and you guys probably barely spent more than an hour. So, really, I hope you've enjoyed. And yeah, please give Shane a good mark. If he is going to get a mark for it, he hasn't really told me. I don't think he knows how it works either. Judging by this video, I thought this work was for media studies. So, Have a great day, man. Yeah, I'm tired. I'm currently suffering from really bad allergies, but I know you can't tell because I've just taken anti-allergens. And so yeah, I spent my entire weekend on this. I could have gone out and gotten laid, but instead I made this for Shane. I've had fun watching it. I made this for free. Weekend gone. Call me if you want videos made for free, because clearly I do them now for some reason. Don't know when this happened. Okay, but there we are.
Oh my god.
See ya. Woo, like, comment, subscribe. Actually, are there comments on Zoom? Can you buy comments? What about likes? Yes, leave a comment saying my name is Jeff in the Zoom, and don't forget to give me the thumbs up, please, please, please. 2 days of my life gone to the wind like ashes. Love you.